What's up, guys? Welcome back. I'm Anthony with On the Snap. I'm here with just a quick video today, a little bit of instruction on 3 very simple kick systems that you can learn in this video and bring to your game as soon as tomorrow. So let's get into this. These are very simple, very basic concepts that it just takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of feel, get a sense of the table, get a sense of your stroke. You might have to make some adjustments so that it fits your game, but I guarantee that if you practice these a little bit and bring them back to your game, you're going to see a massive improvement. So let's take a look. All right, guys, here's a familiar situation from 8-ball. And we're starting, like I said, with the most simple, the most basic type of kick shots you can imagine. And this involves when the cue ball and the object ball, in this case, the cue ball and the 8-ball, are about the same distance away from the rail, from the incidence rail here. So let's imagine you're in that game of 8-ball. You ran all the way down to the 8, but you hooked yourself behind the 15. Maybe you couldn't get shape, what have you. This is what you end up with. You're blocked by your opponent's 15 ball. How do you kick at this 8-ball? A lot of you already know this shot. Feel free to skip ahead. But the basic premise here is we're imagining a triangle from the object ball from the target to the cue ball, which is the originating path. And basically, that triangle creates these perfectly straight lines. And since they are the same distance away, approximately the same distance away from the rail, you really don't have to make any adjustments to correct for that. In this case, the easiest way to measure where that center point is on that opposite rail is to take the distance in diamonds. So in this case, we're 1 diamond to the 15, 2 diamonds to the cue ball, give or take, right? This is not an exact science. Billiards does not behave like physics, as we know. So that's why I mentioned in the intro, get a feel for it, practice this a little bit. Every table is going to play a little bit different, the rails, the cloth conditions, what have you. But in this case, I set up this example because it's basically just a perfect shot into that opposing rail at the 1 diamond mark, and that should take us right towards the 8. So pretty much exactly what we would expect there, cut right into the 8-ball. In this kind of game situation, you are very likely to make this. I think even a player without a knowledge of this kind of system is very likely to make this 8-ball because they're just going to eyeball it. They're going to guess and just say, oh, yeah, it's about half. That makes sense to me. Whether that's an artifact of their geometry lessons from high school, I'm not sure. But this one is pretty easy to spot, pretty easy to just figure out on your own without using a system. That being said, having this system in mind, this sort of split the distance, half the distance from the target, if the cue ball and the target are about the same distance from that rail, having this system in mind is still very useful because these situations come up often where you're going to have to kick at a ball in a pocket, and just reminding yourself that you can fall back on this system, cut that distance in half, and it's going to bring you close is reassuring enough to keep you settled in a competitive situation. Next up, we are taking a look at the kick shot drill from Billiards University exam number 2. What we're going to see here is that the cue ball is placed on the 1-1 location on the table, which is right here, more or less. In this drill, the object is to kick at the 1, 2, 3, and 4 balls off the long rail, as you see in the diagram here in the overlay. The cue ball starts in the same position every time. You get 1 point for each successful and legal kick shot. So hitting the object ball, driving a ball to a rail, nothing scratches. The final shot in the drill after you get through those 4 kicks is shot number 5. You have cue ball in hand, and you have to kick off any 2 rails into the 1 ball. We'll get to that one after this. For these 1 rail kicks, there's a couple ways you could go about this. You could try to extrapolate that same system that we used for kicking into the 8-ball to split the distance. The problem is that halfway point is a little deceiving here because the object ball is farther in from this rail, from this originating point, than the cue ball. So it's not a perfect triangle from these 2 points. If you were to try to line that up, it could be deceiving, and you could either end up overhitting that or underhitting that from here. The system that I use for one rail kicks is to draw a straight line from your object ball to the target rail. By the target rail, I mean the one that you're shooting into with the cue ball. This gives you a straight line, a point to aim at into that rail. From here, you're pivoting the cue stick to basically the halfway point between the target and the cue ball. So if you imagine this straight line between the two of them, find the midpoint of that line. And from there, parallel shift the same angle over to the cue ball. And that gives you this spot. For some people, they will use numbers to try to designate how far along the rail they are. They're one diamond in just before the second diamond. So are you going to call that 1 3/4? Is that an easy way for you to remember it? Are you going to have a different number system to use this where maybe the first diamond is a value of 10, the second diamond is a value of 20? So is this going to be 17, 18 for you? Doesn't really matter what you call it. Have a consistent approach to that just so that you can remember it. But if we say that it's around 17 and we come into this with medium speed, no spin, you are going to make solid full contact with that target ball. In the Billiards University exam, that's considered 1 point. You're good. Get rid of the 1 ball and you can move on to the 2 ball and shoot from that same spot. Showing you again on the 2 ball. And in this case, the balls are meant to be set up along this 3 to 3 line. I'm just doing my best here. Didn't get out the laser levels or anything. But let's take this point, go to the midpoint. And again, not an exact science here, guys. Don't get too hung up on this. We are mostly eyeballing it. From here, you have your point, and you parallel shift that line over to the cue ball. Midpoint gives us, let's call it 25, 10, 20, about halfway between the second and third diamond. We're shooting into 25 on that long rail. Nice and straight. Same pre-shot routine. Keep your eyes on the target. A little bit more of a cut there, so I might not have hit exactly where I was aiming, but you'll see that even if you slightly miss your mark, you're still going to get a very reliable result. And if you miss, you're going to be darn close to what you were aiming at in the first place. Same approach here. This one might feel a little weird because you don't have the rail as a guide if the ball's over the pocket, but it is the same approach. Midline, pulling the cue stick back just a little bit so that I can shift over. Shifting. We're going to call that 34. Again, a bit of a cut, and that one would have been a foul because of the scratch. But in this case, we're really just going for the hit. Not too concerned about technical aspects of the exam. Although if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend it. There are a lot of great skills on there. So this one, pretty much exactly on the foot spot where it's meant to be. And here we see how the system can break down a little bit at distance, just because it's challenging to pull these straight lines. This shot in particular is especially difficult because your natural kick point is leading you basically right into the horns here. So you have the option of going a little deeper past the pocket and trying to tighten that up or correct it with spin. I do not recommend that in this case. I prefer to go above the side pocket, and this is the type of kick shot. I'm sure Dr. Dave did this intentionally when he was creating the exam format, is to challenge you by not having your natural kick point and compensating a little bit with spin. This one is feel more than it is a specific amount of spin. So did not add enough spin, and or speed was a little off, but now we know our exact kick point. These are easy to replicate, easy to practice because it's the same setup every time. So there's our thin hit. A fuller hit would look like a little bit more spin and or less speed, as we said. So let's get a good full hit on this guy. There's a pretty full hit. So that's 1 through 4, Billiards University exam. Solid kick shots on all of them. Let's move over to 2-rail kicks. 2-rail kick system is similar. You're finding the center point between those two balls. You are aiming at your target rail, and there is a parallel shift involved in this one as well. In this case, we're using a pocket as our target and creating that imaginary line between these two balls, finding the center point of that imaginary line, and then drawing a straight line from that point to the pocket. The reason we're choosing the pocket is it's the corner of the table, and the two rails that are involved are the short rail and the long rail. In this case, the pocket just creates that natural division between the two rails. From here, we have our center line. The parallel shift is over to the cue ball. And again, if you want to use your number system, we're looking at 5, maybe 6 on the short rail. Go at these without any spin first. Ideally, you don't want to use spin on these kick shots unless you have to. And it's a medium firm speed. In practice, you can experiment with the speed to find the stroke that feels right for you. But to me, that kind of medium speed, medium firm is in the range of my feel-good stroke. Another situation for you here in a rotation style game, you have to make good contact on this one ball or make it, in this case, to continue to shoot. You don't want to give up ball in hand to your opponent. Your natural one-rail kick is blocked by the 2-ball. The jump might not be comfortable for you, or otherwise it might be a little too close to the cue ball. Find that center line between the cue ball and the object ball. Aim that line at the pocket. Parallel shift from there into the short rail. Some players like to visualize that target as the nose of the rail. Some players like to find the number on that line of diamonds along the rail and use that. Either way, the aim point is ultimately going to be the same along this straight line from the cue ball. And that gives you a solid 2-rail hit on that lowest numbered ball. It can get you out of trouble. Hope you guys enjoyed this one today. Just a little quick instructional video. Like I said, very, very basic techniques here. This is building blocks. You want to start at this point, train up, practice this, see how it feels. If it's a good fit for your game, take it and run with it. If you are able to integrate some of these skills or some of this awareness that these things are options, it's going to jump your game up, especially in a format like APA 9-ball where you're going to be kicking at things a lot. So let me know if you guys like this kind of content. I'm always happy to do these videos. They're really fun for me, a little bit different than my normal commentary. So I will see you down in the comments and catch you again soon for the next video.